To the war in the Middle East now, and a warning, our coverage contains images and details that are distressing. United States President Joe Biden has given Israel his blessing to send its army into Gaza.
Biden told the world America will have Israel's back as it deals with Hamas, who he's described as butchers who'd carried out acts of sheer evil.
Israel has warned the millions of Palestinians inside Gaza to get out, but the last border crossing point closed after it too came under attack. Lisette Raymer reports.
When there are bombs breaking spirits and massacres rewriting the script of your worst nightmare, looking skyward for something other than missiles and praying for peace can suddenly feel like the only option. This group of New Zealand Tongans has been stranded in Israel after their church group tour from Auckland to the Holy Land was cut short by the outbreak of war.
It's actually pretty scary, to be honest.
They've been hiding inside since the conflict began.
Our safety, our security is priority at the moment, and just making it back home to New Zealand, so we're back to our loved ones who are worried, sick for us.
And I've been praying for those who can't hide. Israel is still hitting Hamas with payback. But this footage also reveals the reality of life for civilians in Gaza. Millions of people scrambling under missiles, more than 100,000 now displaced. This little boy was pulled out of the rubble alive. His rescuer rushes to his mother, but before she can hold her boy, she passes out in shock. In their desperation, civilians tried to escape through Egypt today, but were only met with more terror. Their suffering is being felt by Palestinians on the West Bank. No one has crossed the border in or out of Palestine since the conflict started.
We're all human beings, we want to live in peace.
Johnny Kanavavi lives on the other side of the fence. He fears what Israel has in store for those living on the Strip.
They're striking very hard this time, it's not like other times, very hard.
This war is by no means confined to the borders of Gaza. It isn't even confined to the south of Israel. This attack has hit at the heart of a Muslim community just out of Jerusalem.
We heard noise and I came here and what you see now.
His nephew, teenager Majid Brahim, was doing his homework on the couch when shrapnel hit him in the stomach. This war inflicting scars on people, buildings and the pages of history.
The innocent people got killed, both sides. I saw on TV today in Gaza, kids 1 year old and 6 months, and I see in Tel Aviv and I see over there, it's not good.
The number of wounded is putting pressure on paramedics, and the public has answered their call.
We've got 2 kids in the army right now, and it's hard.
Israelis are waiting hours in line to give blood at this temporary clinic.
Well, hopefully it will be okay.
Medics are frantically stockpiling, fearful the worst is yet to come.
We barely even have time for a bathroom break, for food, sleeping maybe 3 hours at home, and then we come back and do the same thing the next day.
Hamas rockets continue to arc through the skies. If it's intended as a challenge, with tens of thousands of reservists already massed at the border and an iron wall of tanks growing by the hour, Israeli forces won't need to be asked twice.
Lisette joins us now from Tel Aviv. Lisette, is there any chance that the negotiations could prevent that land attack?
Well, you've just seen those pictures, Sam, and when you see the number of soldiers around the Gaza border, it is hard to imagine that a land attack is anything but inevitable. But those negotiations certainly carry some weight. Qatar is adamant that a prisoner swap is still on the table regarding the hostages, although Hamas is adamant it is not being discussed at all. The bigger factor at play at the moment is regarding the United Nations and their growing distress over the treatment of those in Gaza. Those civilians are cut off from electricity, food and fuel. So the call has gone out to Israel to immediately set up a humanitarian corridor before anything else occurs. The story is moving so quickly that the number of displaced has already jumped from 100,000 to over 260,000 in Gaza. So the need is just urgent. Of course, there is appreciation and sympathy amongst the Israelis for the innocent Palestinians who are being caught up in this conflict. But the problem is that every time a new headline emerges detailing one of those massacres or providing more details about just how brutal the attack at the hands of Hamas was in the initial stages of this war, it lights a fire and fury amongst Israelis and the Defence Force. They want to strip Hamas of all of its military power, and for them the only way forward appears to be going into Gaza.
Lisette, thanks so much for the update.
Today's phone call from the White House only served to reinforce Israel's hardline position.
The Israeli Defence Minister Yoav Gallant has addressed his troops and told them all restraints are released. US correspondent Mitch McCann reports.
Israel's allies are lighting up blue across the world. The Eiffel Tower, the British Parliament, and a clearly incensed US president.
This was an act of sheer evil.
Using the words sickening, abhorrent and brutality, Joe Biden compared Hamas's actions to the worst atrocities of ISIS.
More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered. Parents butchered using their bodies to try to protect their children. Stomach-turning reports of babies being killed.
An Israeli commander on Australian TV was asked about Biden's comparison of Hamas to ISIS.
I wouldn't contradict the US president, but I would say that this is worse.
The US has sent an aircraft carrier to the region and is replenishing Israel's anti-missile defense system. Joe Biden has effectively given Israel his blessing to do whatever is necessary to retaliate.
Anyone thinking of taking advantage of this situation, I have one word: don't. Don't.
The president's speech came moments after his third phone call this week with Israel's Prime Minister. The pair are longtime friends.
Mr. President Joe, I want to thank you for your continued and unequivocal support.
The White House says 14 Americans have been killed in the Hamas attack. Others are missing and being held hostage. But there's no plan for the US Army to join Israeli troops on the ground yet.
At this point, that is not something that is under planning.
While President Biden condemned the attacks on Israel, the US government is also working to protect Jewish communities here in the United States. The FBI has been working with local police across the country to increase the levels of security at Jewish places of worship. America's top diplomat has now been sent to Israel, but the next move there is unlikely to be diplomatic. In New York, Mitch McCann, News Hub.